The Free People Show, episode 20.
The Free People Show is a show about the practice and politics of being free. Free from government, free from coercion, and free to be yourself. Host Phil Anderson is a libertarian, a Christian, and was the kind of kid who, according to his grandmother, just wouldn't shut up. Phil and his co-hosts will talk politics, but also life in general, challenging you, entertaining you, persistently rapping on the back door of orthodox two-party politics, sparing nobody and taking no prisoners, maybe even making you laugh. Tweet us at @FreePeopleShow with questions and suggestions, or comment on Facebook during or after the show. For information about being a guest, hosting a live broadcast, or sponsoring the show, email info@freepeopleshow.com. Thanks for listening. Now, here's your host, Phil Anderson.
Good evening and welcome to the Free People Show, episode 20. As you can tell, we're a man down tonight. Hopefully, Samuel's feeling better and getting ready for his AP tests tomorrow. My special thanks go out to co-host Patrick Baird, Miles Kristen. You can see him here on the live feed from Facebook where you can find us. Also, business agent Ron DePau, who is a new father of a beautiful baby. Show webmaster Dustin Dryfurst. Show contributors Jeff Korsh, Jay Ranchad, John Migloch, and the Libertarian Party of Dane County. You can find the Free People Show at freepeopleshow.com as well as on our host platform Spreaker, but go to freepeopleshow.com. That is where we're monetized, so go there, as well as Facebook and Twitter. You can find us all over the place. Miles Kristen, co-host tonight, is a video journalist and activist for government transparency. He is the founder of Wisconsin International Radio and an artist and coordinator, that's the word I'm going to use, at Yellow Rose Gallery, 122 State Street in Madison, Wisconsin. He is everywhere, knows just about everything, and is unafraid of telling the truth about whoever, wherever. Welcome, Miles.
Thank you for having me.
Also with us tonight, Patrick Baird, treasurer of the Libertarian Party of Wisconsin, a former Web IT chair. He was the campaign manager for Anderson for U.S. Senate. He is the author and creator of the Libertarian Federalist, which you can find at libertarianfederalist.com and on Facebook. He is also the author of a series of spy novels called The Beatnik Spy, a true Renaissance man.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks for joining us tonight. And Patrick is going to lead the first segment. Apparently, late last week, Republicans got their act together and passed some sort of health care bill. There's been much controversy about it, including the idea that rape is a pre-existing condition, that being a woman is a pre-existing condition. There is so much rhetoric out there and so much over-explaining away of the rhetoric that Patrick, as somebody who is a veteran of the health insurance industry, is going to sort of lay out the facts for us right now and what we should be concerned about and what we shouldn't be concerned about.
First of all, you probably should disregard almost everything that you've heard on television or read on Facebook about the Republicans' Trump care. Because most of it was wrong in part, wrong entirely, completely misstated. I will go over some of the highlights or the lowlights for the audience. But to be honest with you, I think it's pretty much a pointless exercise because whatever they barely managed to, and I think they passed it with like a 1 vote margin. Maybe
it was very close.
It was like if one person would have dropped out, they would not have gotten it passed.
And I credit you for having done scholarship on this as well, because per Justin Amash, who's somebody that I follow on Twitter, they had very little time. Of course, this is commonplace in Washington and Congress. Very little time to read it. Very little time to digest it.
It's a little late to be worrying about whether your congressman actually reads the legislation that they pass.
Yeah, but
they never do.
But to your credit and to the people that spoke up about it, to the truth, you are reading it. It should have happened before the vote, so you could actually have some representative democracy in play.
So here's the basic bullet points. This whole business about pre-existing conditions. There seems to be a general misunderstanding of what pre-existing conditions is all about. People are somehow under the impression that somehow insurance companies are going to suddenly start cutting them off from treatment for conditions that they have. Not true. As long as you maintain continuous coverage, there is no such thing as a pre-existing condition. So let's just get that out of the way. Nothing's changing in terms of the general benefits that people get through their insurance companies. Now, what is changing, potentially, and like I said, the Senate's going to come along and gut this and replace it with something even worse, probably. And we'll talk about that when that happens, I guess. But the basic bullet points are that number one, they're returning some authority back to the states, however, with significant strings attached. So in other words...
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, well, of course.
What a surprise.
They couldn't do actual real federalism. They're doing fake federalism where they... For instance, when it comes to pre-existing conditions, what they are saying to the states is, okay, if you want to, in your state, and they don't have to, it's if they want to, and they'd have to say that they wanted to, because in order for them to do anything, they have to go back to the federal government and get a waiver from the government. Basically, it's Captain May I. They have to go back to the federal government and say, Captain May I, charge people more for health insurance who've gone without health insurance for more than 60 days. That's what pre-existing conditions is. So let's say that you lost your job and got cut off of your health insurance and you couldn't afford to pay the COBRA premiums. So you went without health insurance for a couple of months. And you went back to the insurance company or let's say you got another job in 4 months and you had new health insurance at the new job. What could happen if the states wanted to, and they chose to do so, is that you would be charged a higher premium for up to a year, depending on how long you were without insurance. So what some people are saying, and I think this is basically correct, is that those premiums will be jacked up so high that it'll make it unaffordable for you to get new coverage. So you'll probably wind up going without health insurance for a year or more. Well, actually more than that, because that pre-existing condition would just continue until you got coverage. So they're right about that they probably would jack those premiums up where you couldn't afford it. But again, that's only if the states decided that they wanted to do that. And to do that, they would have to request a waiver. And to get that waiver, they would have to set up a risk pool in their state for people who had pre-existing conditions or other problems with insurance. And here's the thing I love the most about this whole boondoggle. In this bill that the Republicans has passed, is an $800 billion honeypot.
For who?
For the states to set up these risk pools. So they're telling states you can go ahead and do these pre-existing conditions. The other thing they're allowing the states to do is to strip out some of the mandated coverages, which I think is a good idea, to strip out mandated coverage out of their plans in their states. And so they can have stripped down plans, pre-existing condition premiums. But in order to get those waivers, they have to agree to have matching funds to access this $800 billion honeypot that they've set up to fund all of these people who are going to have these problems with pre-existing conditions. So that begs the question, what the hell is the point of that?
It's just a shell game, right?
Exactly. What is the point of saying to the states that you can charge more for pre-existing conditions, but if people get affected by those higher premiums, we'll put them in these risk pools and give them money and help them pay for their plans. Oh, there's another $8 billion just strictly for handouts to people.
Simple.
To help pay for people with pre-existing condition issues. So there's all this federal, massive, $800 billion. That's almost as much as the Trump construction package, the giveaway package that he wants to do. $800 billion.
That's incredible.
So, you just scratch your head. You go, what did you put all that time and energy and political capital into? If all you're doing is just moving things around on the chess pieces around on the board, and you're really not changing much of anything. Like I said, the idea of saying to the states that you can strip out mandated coverage is a good idea, but you're going to have to go through these waivers. You're going to have to set up these risk pools. So it doesn't make any sense. And then the other thing that they did, which also ties into that $800 billion, is that they're capping. This is mystifying to me why this makes sense, unless they're actually trying to kill Medicaid. They're capping off Medicaid enrollments in 2020. So in other words, if you haven't enrolled, if you're in a state, and Wisconsin is one of the states that didn't do this.
Okay.
The state that accepted expanded Medicaid. In other words, you used Obamacare to expand your Medicaid coverage.
And it was Scott Walker that turned that down, right?
Yeah, Scott Walker turned that down. That's that money that the liberals always say, oh, you turned down money from the federal government to help poor people. The problem is that money was going to stop at some point, and Wisconsin would have been on the hook for those costs. But anyway, so what they're saying is if you're not covered by Medicaid and you're an adult, not that this doesn't apply to families and young children. you're not going to be able to get Medicaid after 2020, even in the states where we've expanded Medicaid. So what they're basically doing is they're saying we're basically kind of killing off Medicaid expansion in those states, but we're doing it
in
through
2020.
In 2020, but
so
sort
if they
of
get that done before
way.
then, if they get enrolled before then, so it basically creates a rush to get on it, right?
Exactly.
Which is the whole. Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So that's an example of the kind of just circular logic and pointlessness of this legislation. And like I said, it's all probably going to get wiped out anyway by the
Get your socialism out of my Medicare.
Well, it sounds like there's going to be even more bureaucracy and less transparency in this system than even there was under Obamacare.
Well, it's just going to be a different kind of bureaucracy. It's instead of
one that the Republicans can lay claim to as opposed to the
right,
Democrats, right? So it's just
There's
politically.
going to be all this between the states and federal government bureaucracy. And
what I hate about the false argument that Republicans and Democrats put together when it comes to Medicare, Obamacare and healthcare in general. I see there was rallies recently about saving Obamacare and so forth, and they were going on at the Capitol Square. And I talked to some of them, and I pointed to across the street where a lot of the homeless are, and I said, did Obamacare do anything for the guys sitting over there across the street who are homeless? And it's like, no, because they're too poor for Obamacare. It didn't help the poor. I mean, it helped some poor.
Theoretically, they could have gotten Obamacare with premium subsidies.
But I mean, people who have no money, like
they don't even know how to manage that.
But
accessing that bureaucracy is a
because the money it goes like the money went from the government to insurance companies, then the hospitals. Whereas if maybe in a more European style, maybe the money would have gone directly to the hospitals, where the hospital would have been reimbursed for people it took care of. But you had to have that middleman as the insurance companies, and that's why the insurance companies wrote the whole thing.
Yeah, and we can talk in the next segment or two about what they could have done differently, and I'd like to talk about what they could have done differently. But the point is that, to me, the massive failure of the Republicans in this whole cycle is that when they were talking about we're going to repeal Obamacare, period, because they were saying because the government's taking over 1/6 of the economy. That made sense. That was an argument that I could buy into. I could say, yeah, but the government should not be controlling 1/6 of our economy. That's a bad idea.
But like so much they say it wasn't sincere.
Right, and look at what a mess the rollout was of Obamacare. I mean, it 2 years of just disastrous websites that didn't work, and
all the power and faith and credit of the U.S. government didn't get a website rolled out on time.
Several years down the road, 7 years down the road, 6 years down the road, and 1/3 of the counties in this country have one insurance company in available to them through Obamacare. So you've got the whole thing. You can see your doctor. You can keep your plan. No, that was probably the greatest lie of this century so far.
Wow.
But people
think about that. You
was
live
9/11.
You get the one lousy insurance company that's left after Blue Cross and Aetna pulled out, and you got Bob's insurance company. With their doctors that are butchers.
And once they have no competition, how are they going to perform? How hard are they going to work?
East Ladoga Hospital.
And while we're
Is
on
that
the
a real
subject,
place?
East Ladoga Hospital and Nail Clinic.
And while we're on the subject of Blue Cross Blue Shield, I just got to mention the Democrats in Wisconsin might possibly run a former Blue Cross Blue Shield lobbyist. Tim Cullen, former Senator
I think
Tim
he
Cullen.
already said he's not going to run because he didn't think he could raise enough money.
Well,
There's
maybe
too much time to.
I've interviewed him twice. Both times he said he's running. The last time I talked to him was January, so I don't know if he's dropped out since then.
I think he might
but
be.
That was a possibility, at least.
We'll see. But as of now, he's scared out by the fundraising, and that's a way of kind of begging out of it. Who's going to run? Who should run? I mean, there was just a piece run in the paper the other day about how few candidates there were. Some 25-year-old guy that just moved here from California is the one guy who's declared already. So
here's the thing: if they wanted to beat Walker, they just need to not run a Democrat.
Right.
I mean, it's as simple as that. Don't run a Democrat.
Yeah,
Walker would
just get some Republican to convert.
To bring back Tommy Thompson, I guess, at that point.
As a Democrat, who knows? We'll be back after a short break. You're listening to The Free People Show at freepeopleshow.com. Stay tuned there as well as on Facebook.